Welcome back. In my previous stories, I introduced myself to you briefly, and I gave you a brief introduction about the topic that I feel is most important. It's a topic on self-worth. And so, as we begin here, I want to start out by saying that the ideas and stories I present are not my own. They are based on rigorous scientific research and presented as entertainment for your viewing pleasure. My name is Daniel Ranville, and I'm a person of historic Red River descent. I'm a traditional storyteller. My calling, if you will. It is my traditional role in our indigenous communities. I dedicate these stories to all youth, wherever you are, because we owe you a lot for showing us the error of our ways as gentle and as patient as you do. Has anyone ever spoken to you about self-worth? Think about it for a moment as I read to you. I don't remember anyone, anywhere, at any time, ever telling me about self-worth. It seems like a pretty big deal, don't you think? No doctor, nurse, social worker, teacher, respite worker, cop, lawyer, judge, sheriff, corrections officer, professor, leader, politician, church or minister, or any religious person, not even our elders spoke to me about self-worth. There was one teacher who taught me something very close to self-worth, but he called it self-discipline, which meant that under his tutelage I would learn how to be my own teacher. That sounds pretty awesome, doesn't it? He was my first teacher, my greatest teacher, and in his teachings I caught my first glimpse of my worth. He was my martial arts instructor. He saw what I was worth, and he encouraged me to learn how I could recognize my own self-worth. He saw my spirit and readiness to learn the art of self-defense. I have a gift. I listen. And in listening, I process and I digest that which is heard, is stored into memory in a superior way. Before martial arts, no one had ever noticed me. I would be 15 years old the next time I would ever come close to self-worth. At Calvin Christian School, where teachers were paid well, ensuring the integrity of the school was maintained with excellent academic outcomes. In other words, they wouldn't give up on you if you're falling behind. They held you to account, and they helped you if you needed the help. If you didn't need help, they left you alone, seeing that you were capable. Those teachers were just doing their jobs, because if they didn't, they would be held to account by their bosses, our parents, who were paying their wages. That was a private school. And private schools are not the same as public schools. Public school is a babysitting club disguised as public education with the goal of assimilating you, not educating you. And assimilation suggests that who you are is worthless. After your assimilation process, you might be worth something to someone. You can read about it in Howard Palmer's book, available on Amazon, entitled Patterns of Prejudice, A History of Nativism in Alberta. Palmer identifies a British elite in Alberta living within self-reinforcing echo chambers of ethnocentrisms. They were a power system imposing itself on every arriving immigrant to Canada. They conceived assimilation, planning, and developed the goal of assimilating Eastern Europeans into the white race. The plan was to remove children from their families who taught their children the languages, cultures, mores, manner of dress, food, law, and the like, all considered to be inferior to the British culture. From a British perspective, assimilation, using education, indicates that a person of Eastern European descent meant that you weren't good enough. You had to be assimilated. They did this to Aboriginal children too, but the methods of assimilation were odious and malevolent in comparison. And I will get into precisely how coercive tutelage works in an Indian residential school. Public education hasn't changed in over 150 years. It has the same goal, purpose, and intent: to assimilate children into a society foreign to many. When they are done with your child, you will not recognize them after years of assimilation. Some will become all of the professionals I mentioned earlier, the ones who never told me about self-worth, not once, ever. And there is a complex reason for that, but hopefully this story will present it plainly and sensibly without losing its value. The topic of self-worth seems pretty important, don't you think? But you can never and will never learn about it from public education or the assimilated. It's impossible. The assimilated can't teach you what they don't know, what they don't believe. The British and French empires that colonized North America, the Spanish Empire that colonized South America and the Philippines, those empires suffered gross indignities for thousands of years. And that kind of suffering does not escape the following generations as the cycle of abuse continues uninterrupted and encouraged even by the patriarchs. Consider a pyramid. A pyramid has an apex, a pinnacle that is held up by a hierarchy of blocks laterally layered upon each other. I suggest to you that this is an apropos symbol of Western civilization and its origin before the construction of the Tower of Babel, before the time of the ancient Sumerians. An empire is a hierarchical, class-stratified system of centralized power based on indentured servitude where you can earn your personhood, your citizenship, by working hard for a boss. Citizenship was everything in an empire. It meant you are worth something, that you have rights and privileges, and without citizenship, there is nothing to guarantee your worth. You would be a slave. All of the West and any other country today that has sought to emulate the power of Western society relies on a model, a power system that is based on slavery. Thank you once again for your time and consideration. Please like, share, and subscribe.